This episode of Hansel Minutes is brought to you by Partner Hero. Partner Hero provides customer service outsourcing that's built for the needs of scaling and high-growth startups. They offer flexible terms, fast onboarding, and the ability to scale teams quickly, which is great for fast-growing businesses. Now, in the past, outsourcing has had a bad reputation for being exploitative or somewhat, low quality. But Partner Hero's values-based approach really raises the bar. They pay above market salaries. They have a focus on quality and performance. And unlike most business process outsourcing companies, their management team includes individuals from the startup world. So they're more than just a service provider. They're a thought partner for the startups that they serve. They've got flexible terms. They've got offices around the world. So they have truly global coverage, including onshore, nearshore, and offshore options. Now, outsourcing has long been available to many big enterprises, but Partner Hero is challenging businesses as usual with short, flexible contracts and fast ramp-up times. If you're ready to bring in outside customer support help for your startup that feels like it's a part of your existing team, check out Partner Hero. Head on over to partnerhero.com/HanselMinutes to book a free consultation with their solutions team. Mention that you heard about Partner Hero from Hansel Minutes and they'll waive the setup fee. That's partnerhero.com/HanselMinutes. Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Sophy. She's a software engineer in the financial tech industry and a popular TikToker, and you can check her out at codebysophy.dev. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. So we have been TikTok mutuals for a while now. You came and hung out at Microsoft Build. You are such an inspiration on TikTok because I put out one a week maybe. But you just keep the grind up. You're everywhere on social media, but you have a job, right?
I do have a job.
This is not your job. You are a line developer at a large company. Why do two jobs then? Why are you trying to get people into tech while you could just be napping?
Yeah, I think I've touched on this, right? But I'm so incredibly passionate about being representation for underrepresented minorities in tech. I went through the 4 years and I took the classes, I did the work, and I know what it looks like. I know what the process is like. And I know that there's not that many folks that look like me. And I realize how helpful it is to have those figures to look up to kind of, give you that idea that I can do it too. They did it, I can do it. And so really that's the main driver behind it. And then, of course, when you get that one DM or that one message of, you got me into coding, or you helped me get through this, or this, that, and the other, it just kind of reassures you that, I'm having some kind of an impact, which is nice to know that I'm helping others as well and not just, typing away on a keyboard and wasting my life away,
Are there any other tech people in your family, or are you the first tech person?
I'm the first tech person. Yeah, I'm the first tech person. My dad's an architect, so he was very big on math and science naturally and kind of stressed the importance, I guess, of it. But I'm the first actual tech person.
And when you go to the family Thanksgiving or whatever, do they all just want you to fix their Macs and update their Windows and stuff?
Oh my God. Okay, so this is going to sound crazy. I have a rule and it's become a running joke. And I tell my family members, I'm like, okay, if we're having a function, whatever the situation may be, just assume that my brain is off. Don't ask me to help you reset your password. I don't know how to turn the TV on. Literally the most random things that they just don't want to figure out. Maybe the audio is messed up or something. Oh, call Sophie. No. Pretend my brain is off. I'm not participating. I'm over it.
I spent Thanksgiving setting up a sound bar for my parents. I'm like, why do you think my job qualifies me in any way to Bluetooth pair the sound bar? But I ended up doing it anyway. And,
you're very kind for having done it because I have to put my foot down. The only person that has a warm spot in my heart is my mom. So if she asks me to help her with whatever it may be in terms of, her phone, setting an account up, absolutely, I will always do it. And I will ask no questions. But anybody else, they're getting a side eye and a little bit of attitude.
That is the way. I definitely agree. We have limited time with our family and friends, so like if they want me to reboot the router, they live about 30 miles away. I will happily drop everything. I will drive over there and I'll reboot that router because that's a moment. But if it's a cousin, no, I don't know you. I'm sorry you lost your Gmail in a crypto scam, but good luck.
Right.
Hopefully they're not listening to this show. Okay. So you're out there spreading the good word about tech. You're doing it in your spare time. But I'm going to be kind of like real talk here because I don't want to necessarily disrespect any of our maybe mutual friends, but there is a group of, we'll call them tech talkers, but they're also on Instagram and YouTube Shorts that are really talking about, yeah, just do a little light studying for 6 months and you can make six figures. And getting into tech is very easy. Just study this and go to that website for 6 weeks. But you're not that. You're actually kind of unapologetically ruthless about the grind and the work involved. Is that a conscious thing that you're doing?
Absolutely. It was hard. Like, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. It was incredibly hard. And it's not a comfortable way of thinking. It takes a lot of grind and hustle to get it done. At least it did for me. But I was able to get it done. Right. At the end of the day, you put in the work and you have a result. And I want to be transparent about that. Just because something's hard doesn't mean that it's not possible. But I'm not here to sugarcoat anything either. I also think it's very important to highlight that it's hard because there's a part of tech, I think, that kind of makes it seem like this is so easy and it came easy to me. And I've been coding since I was 2 and I'm so naturally smart and this, that, and the other. And hi, I'm Sophie. I'm not naturally smart. I actually work hard. I didn't understand any of this stuff, but I figured it out and I'm here. So this is the reality. And I kind of want to shine a light on that, right? In terms of the whole like study 6 month situation. So controversial opinion. There's like a controversial opinion about boot camps, I feel, right? And I think that I've gone into like really good dialogue with some of my friends. Like some people feel very strongly against boot camps. And I got a 4-year degree and I'm not against boot camps. I don't see why I would be. I think it's an avenue to break into an industry and potentially make a good living and change the outcome of your career trajectory. If you have the option to go to a 4-year university, absolutely take that. But if you don't and you're not happy and you want to transition, try out a boot camp. I don't see what the problem is.
No, there's a lot to unpack there, and I think it's worth talking about because there is we all want everyone to be equal and we want everyone to be happy and we want everyone to be successful and healthy and have a roof over their heads and be able to eat. And I also want to be able to say, you can do it. Like everyone wants to be the one that says you can do it because the opposite of that is like, you can't do it,
Right.
And then you're gatekeeping, right? You're standing in front of the gate, preventing people from getting in. Do you think anybody can get into tech, or is it okay to say maybe you don't have that magical skill and maybe you should think about another one of the many varied careers, or maybe a career that isn't, when I say tech, I mean like you and I, like writing code and shipping code. You could be doing other work in the tech space, but not maybe directly compiling code for someone.
I personally don't think that I'm in the position to tell anybody that they can't do something. I don't know your background. I don't know your work ethic. I don't know how you learn. I don't know any of that, right? All I know is that what I've been through, and I know I would like to assume that I'm a pretty average, relatable person, right? And so through that relatability, I carry that mantra of, yeah, absolutely anyone can do it. Because there was a point where when I first started my my undergrad in computer science and engineering, I remember I was hanging out with some folks in NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, and I was talking to one of my colleagues or fellow friends, engineer, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get a shirt that says engineering student or computer science and engineering, UC Irvine. And she was like, I'm going to hold off on that. Like, I want to make sure that I can really do this before I start repping that, like, I'm an engineer. You know what I mean? Like, so she was already having questions about, am I going to make it to the end of the 4 years? And then that kind of made me think, well, wow, am I going to make it to the end of the 4 years? Like, You know what I mean? Like I don't know any engineers. I've never seen a Black engineer in the industry, not especially not a woman. So is it possible for me to do this? Um, but I did, right? And I was able to kind of to get through that whole situation with the hard work. And yeah, so I don't know. I'm never going to tell somebody that they can't do something just because I think if they want to be able to get to the end of it, they'll be able to.
I dig it. So then if we assume that everyone can do it and then they can decide for themselves if they want to continue, then the question is, how do you have a long and varied career? You've been an engineer, like a professional engineer now for almost 4 years. You're coming up on a half decade of time. See how impressive that is if you say it like that? You're coming up on a half decade in tech.
I don't know that I like that.
You're so old, Sophie.
I know.
But you're coming up on 5 years, and then you'll come up on 10 years, and hopefully you'll have a 20 or 30-year career, and you'll retire happy, having taught and inspired a lot of other engineers. But in order to do that, you have to also not quit now. So I assume that the grind didn't end when you got your undergrad. The grind continues.
Yeah, when I completed getting my degree, that was probably the beginning of everything. There's like phases. I think that's a good way to put it, right? You have like your initial phase where you're introduced to tech or computer science. And you're like, oh, this is something that I want to get into. You decide you're going to get into it. That's phase 2. You're in your undergrad. Then you kind of get into the, wow, this is actually really hard. And I was not expecting this. Can I actually make it to the end? You make it to the end, a whole struggle in and of itself. And then you're in the phase of, all right, great. I got the degree. I'm here. Now I have to actually learn how to be a software engineer, which, newsflash, is kind of nothing that you learned in college. It's a completely different arena, right? And quite frankly, I'm still figuring it out. It was a struggle, like my first 6 months in like the corporate area, because you start to have a whole bunch of another set of doubts. How did I get here? Do I belong here? Do I really understand what's going on? Wait, I do. Should I ask that question? Man, if I ask that question, then maybe they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like there's all this that's kind of brewing and going in your head. But after you kind of work through that, you kind of start getting a little bit more confident, right? Because when you're in a meeting and you're debating asking a question, and then you hear somebody else ask the same question, then you kind of get the reassurance of, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so maybe I do know what I'm talking about. All right, so then in the next meeting when you have a question, you're like, all right, let me ask my question because it's probably going to add value. You ask the question, and then you kind of slowly start getting a little bit more confidence, and you start learning more. So all that to say, I'm still learning in this almost half decade. But I'm eager to continue learning. I think that that's probably why I stay in tech. I think it's important to kind of move around in your career, and I haven't done that yet. So we'll see what the tail end of my half decade looks like.
Hey friends, here's an opportunity that's bigger than just a regular sponsorship. As you may know, I'm coming up on almost 900 episodes of the Hansel Minutes podcast, and I've recorded hundreds and hundreds of those episodes with Zencastr. That's Zencastr. Zencastr allows me to record all of these podcasts and talk to guests from all over the world, and they've recently announced crowdfunding. You can actually invest in Zencastr for as little as $100, and you can join a community of their investors. I have, in fact, invested in Zencastr. I remember when it was just a 1 or 2 person shop. They're now raising money because the podcasting industry has grown so big. Actually, they're saying that the projections are going to be more than $150 billion by 2030. Podcasting is where it's at. So if you are interested in investing in Zencastr, you can go to WeFunder, WeFunder, wefunder.com/Zencastr. That's Zencastr without the E at the end. So Zencastr, wefunder.com/Zencastr, or just click the link in my episode description below, and you can claim your slice of the future of podcasting. So I've been in tech now, I'm looking at the clock, 31 years coming up on. And yesterday I was on a call with two other engineers at Microsoft because I was stuck and I had been fighting a problem for a couple of hours. And one of them, I've been working on some C# code and I couldn't get it to work. And I would change it and compile and change it and recompile, change it and recompile. And the guy says, well, hang on a second, open your Docker file, which I had not looked at in the entire day because I was focused on the C# code. And he's like, oh, that should be that. And it was just like, oh my God. Like I called a senior guy at Microsoft and I sat on the phone with him for an hour and I explained my whole problem. And he's like, oh, look over there. You know what I mean? It's like, where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? They're on your head. And then I'm like, this is it. Like, oh, I shouldn't be here. But then I remembered, and what was cool about it was that exact same thing happened in reverse with that exact same guy 6 months before. And he reminded me of it.
Oh, I love that.
And he says, hey man, it happens to the best of us. You hooked me up 6 months ago. Let's just keep bouncing back and forth. And that's okay. And this is after 3 decades and that's totally okay. And if you, hopefully Sophie will have 20 years in the biz and you're going to still need to Google for how to do a regular expression. Because no one knows how to do that.
Don't get me started on regular expressions, please.
Isn't it awful when you say that? Like someone's listening to this show right now and they're in their car, maybe in their driveway, like because they love the show so much that they've arrived home and they need to go inside, but they're just having a driveway moment.
Right.
And you and I just said that about regular expressions, and they're like, I never had a problem with regular expressions. I don't see why everyone thinks they're so hard.
Tech bros have entered the chat is what it sounds
It's like. A language within another language. Like you make a language and then you put it in a string inside another language. Who thought that was a good idea?
I have no idea.
Regex is always going to be a problem for me.
Yeah, same. There's a list of things, but that is on there.
Well, so the other thing I think is interesting is I'm realizing, and I'm telling my 15-year-old, my 17-year-old this, is that life is a way bigger group project than you ever thought. Like if you excelled in school doing stuff alone, you're going to find that life will end up putting you in group projects. Have you found that a lot of your coding is like collaboration, or are you just alone in the room with Google and Stack Overflow?
Well, quite literally, I am alone in the room because I work from home by myself. But in terms of collaboration on code, like absolutely not. I mean, I actually I can get kind of stubborn, right? And I know a lot of coders can be the same. When I'm working on a problem, my mind will not stop until I figure it out. I mean, I don't think it's healthy. It's affecting my entire day, my mood, like my sleep, all of it. So what I'm doing now, before I reach out for help, is I'm trying to time box how long I struggle. And before, I would not time box it. Like my manager would have to reach out like, hey, how's the progress on X, Y, and Z? And I'm working on it. Like, I'm going to figure it out because I'm just so stubborn, or if I can figure this out and I want to get to the solution. But a lot of the time, what people don't realize is that when you're being stubborn like that, you're actually robbing yourself of maybe something very valuable. If you ask for help after, do your due diligence first, of course. But if you ask for help sooner rather than later, they'll walk you through what their thought process is. So then the next time it comes up, you can solve it this much faster. Right. So it's very, very valuable to know when to ask for help, even though it can be a little bit frustrating because you sometimes feel like you can do it all yourself.
Yeah. And I feel like also the value of being a senior engineer is just having seen it before. Mm-hmm. So like you're not going to remember everything, but you are going to go and say, I've had this problem before. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm not going to waste 12 hours on it like I did last time I had this problem. I actually had to open up code yesterday that I had, and I saw the last check-in was 2018. And I was like, I wrote this. I don't recognize any of this information. Like it says it was me, but I have no idea.
Yeah, that's kind of how it goes. And then the worst is when you have to re-pick up a project and like go re-explain everything you wrote. If there's a word, it's like coding zone or coding, I don't know, like coding vision, and you're just like typing all this stuff and it's like absolutely amazing. And then you look back at it 3 months and you're like, I have no idea what any of this is doing. And I need to go re-explain it to myself.
My boss Amanda Silvers calls that the flow state, like when
Okay.
you're just there, you're locked in.
Yeah.
But to your point, you're stuck, like you're in the shower, going for walks like I've seen movies where I'm watching a movie and I can't stop thinking about this problem.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a uniquely engineering
It has to
thing.
be. I'm convinced that it is. But it
Yeah.
even, yeah, I feel like it used to happen to me when I was in school as well. Like if I couldn't solve something, I would be very probably this is not good. I was irritable until I could like speak to the professor and be like, "Look, I've tried X, Y, and Z, and this still does not make sense. Like, make it make sense, you know?" So I think it's just part of it.
One of the things that you've talked about on your TikTok are like coping skills. And internally at Microsoft, we have some programs called Tech Resilience,
Hmm.
where we teach people how to be technically resilient. And one of the things that we're seeing is kind of, I wouldn't say conflict with an uppercase C, but maybe conflict with a lowercase c between different generations about what is the appropriate amount of arguing, where it's like you're in a safe space and we're having an argument about tech versus I don't like the way you're talking to me, or now you're being disrespectful. Like you ever see that meme where the guy's fighting with his brother about the Wicked Witch of the West?
I don't think I
You
have.
ever seen this? Okay,
Sadly,
maybe this is
maybe
a
I live
Vine
under a
meme,
rock.
but okay, that's okay. Well, so like Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's this Wicked Witch of the West meme. It's basically this meme where these guys, these are like bros, are arguing about the Wizard of Oz, and it's glorious. Check this out. See if you can hear this.
Her sister was a witch, right? And what was her sister? A princess. A wicked witch of the east, bro. I'm gonna stab him. You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong? Am I wrong? My favorite she wore a crown and she came down in a bubble, dog. I'm fighting with you.
So these are like two grown men that are fighting about it, and at the end of it, the guy says, "This is my favorite movie." And what's so wonderful about it is that it's just such a ridiculous like argument, but you can tell that like they're cool and they love each other.
Mhm.
So sorry that this took so long to explain that. That sound shows up on TikTok a lot because it's just like the healthy argument, but also way too passionate. Because if one of them had been proven wrong at the end of the argument, they would go, "Oh, yeah, you're actually right about that." So I have those relationships at work where someone's like, "You're an idiot," but they're not really like, it's not toxic.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of like fighting. So I'm curious, have you found times when you like really are vibing with people at work and fighting about tech and you still know it's healthy and you feel resilient? Or are there times where you fight at work about tech and then it ruins your week?
You know, it's really interesting. I've encountered it between some of my colleagues. Like they'll have that kind of dynamic between them, like in front of, others. And like they're kind of going at it back and forth. But these are like senior engineers and they're like really going at it. And I would consider myself still pretty junior. So like I'm just kind of like sitting there like, like looking back and forth and like, I've observed it, but I don't think that I've actively had like that passionate of conversations around tech. I think typically what'll happen, and this is just more recently, now that I'm a little bit more comfortable voicing my ideas, because believe it or not, it takes a while to get there. I I was working on something with somebody that was more senior than me, and we were trying to come up with a solution. And I found a solution that I thought was pretty good, like, pretty decent. And he had a different solution, a completely different solution, right? He's been doing this far longer than I did, or I have. And I'm telling him about this and I'm like, hey, like, I really think we should do it this way. And he's like, well, I don't know that we should because X, Y, and Z. And then I was like, okay. And like younger Sophie would have been like, okay, that's fine. Like send me the documentation for your approach. Like he's more senior. We're going to do it his way.
And you're like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Absolutely. But this like current Sophie was like, well, I think like nervously into the mic, like, I think it's better for A, B, and C. Right. And then he's like kind of taken aback, but not in a bad way, kind of like, oh, I didn't think about that actually. That's actually sounds pretty good. Right. And then we kind of go in and we ended up taking my approach and I was like, oh, so that's kind of how that goes. So it by no means was it like heated at all. But it was a minor step for me to kind of like push the envelope a little bit and be like, hey, I think that we should do this, So I've encountered the heated conversations. I'm not there yet where I'm like so confident that I'm going to be like, yelling back and forth, but hopefully soon, or maybe soon, we'll see.
Well, I recognize that kind of like back and forth has a very like dudes duding kind of like brothers screaming thing.
Yes,
and there's a certain kind of gendered intensity to it. But at the same time, I'll tell you that you can have that relationship with coworkers that you trust of all ages and flavors. And when you get there, and I hope that you have that sometime, it's super powerful because you'll fight, you'll disagree, and then you'll commit and you'll say, I love that I could fight with you, lowercase f, in a way that was like safe. You never questioned that I was supposed to be here. So like you and I could have a fight about a website or whatever. And at no point is one of us going to like flip the bozo bit and be like, Sophie doesn't know what she's talking about. We're just having like a legitimate disagreement. And then and then you go to drinks afterwards and everyone's happy.
And the thing about tech is that a lot of the time there's multiple right answers and there's multiple solutions, right? And so that's where that the nature of like the arguing back and forth and like not outright saying like you're wrong, because it's maybe they're not wrong. It's just a different approach than what you're thinking, right? So it's for sure something that's healthy in any tech environment, I'd say.
Yeah, it is. Do you have times like whether it be this year or last year, the year before, where you say, wow, I really grew this year more than the year before? Like, do you feel these changes in velocity?
I do. And it's interesting. The way that I notice it is probably in the nerves that I used to get. So like, for example, I have a one-on-one that I've been having with somebody at my company since I was an intern. And in the very beginning stages, I would get so nervous to speak with him. I mean, just like so nervous. Like I'm writing down everything that I'm going to say, my talking points, and I'm like not making eye contact, right? And we just had a conversation, I think last week or the week before. We've been checking in, ever since then. And I wasn't nervous before. I genuinely felt like I was calling someone up to just have like a catch-up talk and like talk and just casually throw in the technologies I was working on, what I was doing. And I feel like that sense of ease and the less nerves comes with the fact that subconsciously I'm like, there's really nothing he could say that would catch you off guard. And if it did, you'd be okay asking him, oh, well, what's that? I've never heard of that. Whereas before you're in that, I was talking about the phases. You're in the phase of like, should I even be here? If I ask this question, like maybe it's not the right question. You know what I mean? So like you're in a completely different mindset. And so you kind of, look back and you're like, okay, I think I'm growing here. I think I'm progressing. So yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I want people in tech to feel like that. I was on a call with someone senior a couple of days ago, and they said, can you explain Docker? And they were like, I know that it's a thing. I know what it is, but I'm a front end dev. I don't think about like I don't do any back end work. And I've always kind of wondered, and I never got around to it. And we talked about Docker for a while. I'm not going to flip the bit on it because the world is huge.
Yeah.
Like I can't always know the difference between deep learning and machine learning or Django and whatever else. There's a million things to know. So the fact that you can like ask, hey, what's that 3-letter acronym? Or like, what is that code name? I don't know what that is. And not feel like that's where, now, okay, we found you, Sophie. You never should have been here 4 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? We caught you.
Right. And to your point about like senior leadership or somebody more senior asking questions, it happens more often than not, where at least, in my space, like they'll ask something. Or if some, even at a level of make somebody that maybe isn't as senior, maybe they're more junior or whoever it may be, and they're asking you about what you're working on because they've never worked on it. So a previous manager I had he told me, he was like, you're probably the expert in this. Would you like to know why? And I was like, why? I've only been working on it for 2 weeks. He's like, well, because you're the only person on the team that's been working on it. So you're now considered the expert, right? And so when you kind of realize that, yeah, well, tech is always evolving. There's like a million and one things. You can never possibly know everything. You relax a little bit, it's like, it's okay. Your manager may not know the ins and out of the technology you're using because guess what? They've never worked on it. That doesn't mean that they're not qualified or they shouldn't be there or they're not smart or whatever the situation may be,
One last thing I want to ask as we get towards the end here, and folks can check you out at Code by Sophy, SOPHY.dev, as well as TikTok.com/@CodeBySophy. You keep grinding. You put out great content. You're one of my favorite creators. You've got over 50,000 followers on TikTok. But I noticed something that you're having happen on your TikToks that I have happen on mine. I've just scrolled down randomly and I'm looking at your TikTok, and I'm just going to look at some of your views. 1,000, 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, 1,000, 2,000, 2 million, 1,000, 1,000, 1,000. The covers of these are all the same. There's nothing particularly interesting about any of these other than it's Sophy offering advice. Dozens of them have 1,000 views. One has 2 million. Do you have any idea why that happened?
I have no idea, Scott.
You just keep putting them out until it pops.
I have no idea. And I got to be honest with you, all I can do is continue to kind of be authentic to my message and what I'm trying to get done. And if for whatever reason TikTok decides that, well, I don't even know if it's TikTok, the people decide that they're interested in one of the videos that I make, then I will be very grateful and then move on with my life and hope that another one gets more attention.
And I'm sure that you're making, as I am, dozens of dollars on the TikTok Creator Fund.
I mean, I'm getting ready to quit my job with how much I have there. So
yeah, my recent TikTok payout was $8.40-something.
I mean, I think daily I'm getting paid like a penny.
Yeah.
I don't know if that anyways.
Well,
penny.
As long as it feeds your spirit, if not your stomach, I think we're both having fun trying to spread the word about getting involved in tech.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, you can check out Sophy at codebysophy.dev and on TikTok and social media everywhere. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.